Hi everyone, this is Heather Fiore and this is Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. The first article was the NEA Teacher Evaluation, and some of the key provisions dealt with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which ended the federal government's involvement in influencing teacher evaluation systems. It allowed the states to develop their own. It allowed the districts basically to put strategies in place that have been proven successful for student achievement. In developing these own goals, they did have to get it all approved by the State Department of Education, and they needed to include such thing as high quality rubrics. They had to provide training for the evaluators and give timely feedback. Overall, the student achievement was not just based on test scores. An issue with teacher evaluations. Evaluation systems have changed over the recent years. In 2009, the American Reinvestment Recovery Act provided $4.3 billion to implement new teacher evaluation systems. So the states took steps to connect new evaluation systems with such things as compensation, tenure, promotion, or even dismissal of a teacher. The new evaluation systems were a bit more complex. Especially it talked about Charlotte Danielson, which, as you can see here, I have the book, The Framework of Teaching, because this is basically what we use in our district. I have provided all my teachers with a copy of this because I am the librarian, so I make sure that my teachers have what they need to understand what they need to do in school as far as observation-wise for their students and so forth. The unions wanted better evaluation systems so that the teachers would get better feedback. The new systems are still a continuation of changes and modifications. It's basically, as I stated here, testing and refinement. Teacher evaluation heads to court. National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, along with their affiliates, have been filing lawsuits challenging these systems put in place. The first case that I'm going to talk about is Cook versus Bennett, where the state used a standardized test to evaluate a teacher who teaches subjects basically that are not on the test. How is that fair? How can a teacher be judged on a test where it's not even the subject that they teach? So that's judging the teachers unfairly. They're basing it on a school-wide growth formula. However, in that particular case, the state ruled in favor, or the courts, I'm sorry, ruled in favor of the state. Most of the cases I read, it seemed like the judges ruled in favor of the states. Teacher evaluation and the problem of professional development. The basis of this article is that observations should be a basis for what professional development is offered. Evaluation alone will not produce effective teachers and their practice. So these observations that we get, whether it's twice a year or 3 times a year, should be connected to something that's going to benefit us. I know, like in my district, we have over 500 teachers just in my high school, 2 buildings, of course, but to connect professional development is definitely a challenge because we each have different attributes that we're good at. But I think our administration and district probably needs to find us some more quality development. They've done some things over the past few years that are really good. They have put together like an in-service day where there are just all different things going on in all different classrooms. So basically you could choose what professional development you want to go to. So if I'm not so proficient in Google Docs, I can go to a Google Doc training. If I'm not so proficient in Genesis, which is our online system that we utilize for for attendance, gradebook, all of that, we can go to that. So that's definitely moving in the right direction to connect our observations with our weaknesses possibly, but I don't think in a whole that our observations are being utilized for that. They need to continue promoting teacher performance and improvement at every stage so that professional development and the observations are linked. Evaluation process. So our observation process is the Danielson model, as I mentioned earlier. We have a pre-observation, which they send us out questions by the evaluator, and we have to answer them before we meet. Sometimes the questions aren't so relevant. Like for me, I'm lucky in that they're very open to what I have to say. They know I know my job very well, and they pretty much listen to me more so than them telling me what to do. So at the pre-observation, we just discuss what's going on in the library and what my goals are. During the observation, typically the evaluator would come in and observe your lesson. Works a little different for me because I don't always have lessons going on. They try to coincide the evaluator, but it's a little difficult because of the number of evaluations they have to do. Post-observation, we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the lesson. We are required to bring evidence of domain 4 because our Danielson model is broken down into 4 different domains, and that's the one they ask us to bring. With that said, I do have some hesitations about our observation system, being for the first few years that they implemented this, they had nothing for librarians. So I fell under the teacher observation. Kind of disappointing because it did not apply to me whatsoever. So I'm very excited in the book that I showed you earlier to finally see that they have the rubric for librarians. And it definitely is geared more towards me. Still some things that I would say don't really apply to me, but definitely a lot better. So with that said, after the way it works, our observations is if you're tenured, you get 2 observations and walkthroughs as necessary. The 2 observations are usually by an administrator and a supervisor. And if you are not tenured, you get 3 observations and again, walkthroughs. Of those observations, for the 2, one's announced and one is unannounced. I'm at that point in the game, so I'm usually getting 2 observations a year. So I usually get 1 announced and 1 unannounced. I'm very flexible. They're more than willing to come at any time because I feel that what I'm doing is always relevant to my students, my staff. So I don't have a hesitation. A lot of people have a hesitation with the unannounced ones, but I don't. They're more than welcome to come in at any time. Teacher recourse. So if you get a bad observation, luckily I've never been put in that situation, but if a teacher does get one, they can ask to have another administrator, supervisor observe them. They could write a rebuttal to the observation, and if worse comes to worse, they could go to the VA and log a complaint. One of the things I found online was the Broward County School District versus Stephen Yerkes. In 2014, he was fired for a poor evaluation. Basically, what seems to have happened, it was kind of like a biased thing against Mr. Yerkes. The administrators botched the evaluation. They used it unfairly to fire him. When it went to the courts, the school board, the judge said they recommended that he be rehired. The school board refused to rehire him. So then it went on to further courts, and basically he claimed the misuse of the evaluation system to try and get rid of him. And basically because they did not like him, that the district administrators didn't like him, and they were using it to get rid of him, not because of his teaching ability. In the end, the state court ruled they must reinstate Yerkes, and he got 3 years back pay for this. So again, you can't use these evaluation systems because you have a bias against a person, or you just don't like their personality or the way they portray themselves and teach, or if they're teaching and doing a good job, you can't use this evaluation system to go against them. In reflection, basically the things that we need to do as administrators is keep up with the laws and regulations. Utilize your HR department, your legal department if you have one, to confirm with the questions, and don't be afraid to ask. Ask questions. Ask questions to your other administrators. Ask questions to, like I said, your human resources, your legal department, and just keep up on those laws. Thank you for listening.